Yo, I'm finally gonna do something that I said I was gonna do a long time ago, and that's doing some of these tutorial videos. I know there's a million of them on YouTube already, and a lot of them are really good, but there's a couple things that I've figured out over the years that may help you step your game up. So today I thought I'd start with the easy one, and that's drums. I'll show you a couple things that you can do really quickly to get your drums to knock a bit more. Alright, cool. So first of all, let me just give you a lay of the land here. I've got this beat going. It's basically just this loop. And it sounds pretty cool, but the drums aren't really popping through like we would like them to. The first thing is obviously picking good samples. I'm pretty happy with the samples that I've found. This is like a kick from the Maxwell pack, and then like this random snare. I think that's maybe the Jake 1 pack, and then an original hi-hat loop that I played on my drums a while back, and some trap hats in a Ableton sampler. So first things first is a lot of times I start with the snare, just because that's usually the thing that's happening the most times and the most noticeable. And the first thing that I hear is that reverb is cool, but I don't think it should happen every time. And one thing to make things punchy right off the bat is just shortening them. Fading. That's already a lot better just doing that. It's cool on the second one, maybe. Another tip I have is I really hate moving samples around with the fade on them, and then I have all this weird stuff going on. Once I'm happy with it, I just consolidate it. So it's super easy to move and maneuver. We're just going to keep that reverb on the second one there. Sick. Okay, and then another thing that you can do is I tend to use saturation quite a bit. I don't know what it does really. It just kind of like makes things a bit louder, have a bit more like harmonics to them. Sometimes punches it up, but not all the time. I don't know. Saturation just has some magic to it. So I'll just put a little touch of it. Already it's sounding great. Let's throw an EQ on, make sure there's no weird low frequencies muddying up our mix. Make that 0. Oh, that's really popping. Another thing I like to do is while I'm producing, just to make sure I know how the drums are smacking, I like to have a limiter on my master. I usually use the Pro L. I like the dubstep setting for whatever reason. It's pretty punchy. Around there. That's sounding cool. Snare sounding pretty cool. One last thing that you can do, sometimes if it needs it, is the transient designers. I use this transient master from Native Instruments quite a bit. I just bump up the attack a bit, sustain down just a bit. It's really poking now. Maybe a bit too much, but we'll just leave it for a moment. Another thing that I noticed already as I turn this up is that whistling stuff. And when you're EQing, it's right around here. And I hate that frequency, so I dip that out. Cool. So that sounded pretty cool. Let's make this kick a little better. So I can tell that it's pretty long straight off the bat. The low frequencies go to about here, and that's like a bit too long for me. So let's do the same thing and shorten this up. You don't want to do it too much, because then you lose all low end. Make it just enough where it's punchy. And then I'll just color this differently so I can see all the kicks that I've flown. I'm going to start flying them. Let's hear that. Yeah, and that's sounding great. I mean, that kick already is a great sample. I mean, that's a huge part of it, man. Just picking dope samples straight off the bat makes your life easier and your job easier. I also do saturation on kicks sometimes. Just adds that extra little oomph. And then for hi-hats, trap hats, I would say, not too much is needed. I probably don't even need to EQ this. As you can see, there's really nothing going on down here. I mean, little things, but maybe I can boost where it's really coming through. Not too much because that'll start to hurt your ears, this area, but just to get it poking through a bit more. And this one already sounds great out of the box. Cool. So these sound good, but they're a bit clean in my opinion. So one thing that I like to do to just dirty stuff up a bit is, and add a little bit more life, is put it in a group and put some like tape saturation or some sort of saturation on the whole group. And that way, when your kick hits, your hi-hats duck a bit, you know, there's a bit more distortion going throughout, you know, and you don't want too much, but sometimes a bit is really good. And one thing that I like to use a lot is this Radiator by Sound Toys. But this is only one of the things I use a lot. I also use the Ampex tape plug-in from UID. That's really awesome. And then there's a couple tape plugins in the Waves bundle, like the Kramer and the J37. All of these are really good for drum buses. Also, Ableton 10 has the new drum bus effect, which is essentially doing the same thing, but I find it a bit heavy-handed, so I don't use it quite as much as the other stuff, but it is cool. So for now, we're going to use Radiator and just dial it to how we like it. First thing I do is to turn this noise off. It's cool to have noise in your beat, but I like having control over it, so I don't like it coming from my plugin, so I just turn that right off. That sounded pretty cool to me, like straight out. Sometimes I'll take this input down and the mix down a bit if it's too much, but at the moment it sounds pretty cool. And the last thing I'll say is to get your drums to come through is to go to your entire mix and turn every single thing down, every other thing down. You want your drums to be really hitting your limiter, being like the loudest things in your mix. They're the things that you want to be like hitting zero and stuff, and your other stuff should always come secondary to where your drums are sitting. I think that's the number one thing I hear in like my Skype students when they send me stuff and they're complaining about their drums not coming through, is all their stuff is way too loud. Their 808s are way too loud. Their pads are way too loud. Turn that stuff down and your drums will start to pop through. So I can take that stuff down a bit. You can take it to the extreme if you want. Yeah, so that's about the level I like it. So yeah, those are just some quick tips. There's a lot more stuff that you could do, but I just kind of wanted to keep this really simple. Cool, so I hope that helped. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see next. Peace.